thrilled to be here as well. I want to know how many consider themselves new camp cooks, but the problem is I can't see everybody. Is there anybody that's new to this ministry?
Maybe just if you are new, just go ahead and throw your name in the chat.
Yeah,
And
that'd be
Darla,
great.
while they're doing that, I don't know if you'd like for them to just throw questions in the chat as we go and have a Q&A
Yep.
at the end. You want to just do it that way?
That would be great.
All right, cool. So I'm not seeing too many people put in that they're the new person. Maybe they're a little shy, or maybe we've got some veterans with us today. I don't know.
Great. Okay. And like he talked about, Dennison mentioned, I do have a passion to create or change the stigma of camp food. We've all had some camp food that you're like, wow, what in the world? And then others that are just phenomenal. And so that is a big deal to me. We are a vegetarian kitchen, as I would assume most of you are. Not every camp is, but most camps are vegetarian in the Adventist system. And that brings its own challenges if you open up your camp to community groups that come in. And so we'll talk about that a little bit, but I want you guys to ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing when you're working in camp, in the camp food service part of the ministry. That's a big deal. Sometimes it's the location, sometimes it's your husband has another job or your wife has another job and this is what you got stuck with. Those make a difference when you are working in the camp ministry. Food decides how good your camp is. That's my opinion. That it just all stems on how good the food is. And you need to not, in my opinion, not cut corners when it comes to your food in your areas. I mean, obviously you have to follow the bottom line or watch the bottom line, but that shouldn't be where you cut corners first right out of the chute. I've had people brag to me that I can do a meal in, $1.80 or something like that. And that's not, I think you can focus on that, but that's not where your main focus should be. Your main focus should be putting out high quality food. For instance, we have a little restaurant here in town. It has, in my opinion, the best ambiance of the area. It's just a cute little restaurant. And we've eaten there once or twice and the food is terrible. And so you don't go back because the food isn't good, and you'll go to a hole in the wall if the food is good. People will just flock to that. If you go, have you ever heard of that? Or the locals, you just follow where the locals go. And sometimes they're not that high quality or high end type looking restaurant, but it's because their food is really good. So it's important that camp food has that stigma of being really good food. And that's a big deal to me. Also, camp food is a ministry that I think sometimes we miss along the way, or our cooks get so tired that they miss that, that food is a ministry. And I have some examples. We had our health inspector that came in on an off time, and I'm like, why is he here? This is interesting, because he's already inspected us. And he kind of hung around for a little bit, and then he said, I'd really like Douglas to pray with me. My wife has cancer and I don't know anybody. And I just knew you guys were Christians. And I would consider him a casual acquaintance because we, see him when he comes and inspects the food. And so that's a big deal. People need to realize. Another casual acquaintance that came through line, she was with our quilting group, had been there a few times. And I can't even remember to this day how it came up, but she said, yeah, my daughter was killed by Ted Bundy. And you're like, and then where do I go from here? Would you like lasagna? I mean, you stop, you stop and touch base with that person because they're giving you information. They're reaching out to you. That's a huge deal. And that's just through the line. We've had people call and say, from the rental company that Douglas would rent equipment from in town, and say, I'm dying and I don't believe in what the Catholic Church says. And I just really want to know what's going on here. And I've lived a rough life. And so Douglas went over and talked to him and prayed with him. Our neighbor called one time, he was having heart surgery, and said, I don't have a pastor and I'm really nervous about this and I need somebody to pray with me. That's a big deal. Hospitality is a God gifting. And I think we miss that in the food service line. Hospitality is a huge God gifting. And you've seen people that, just come on over and they just have a great time. And, you know, they're meet the needs of those people. And not everybody has that gifting, but certainly camp food in the camp cafeteria, hospitality is a big deal. So you want to put people there that have that gifting, or at least one or two of them that can help with that when you're meeting the needs of your people that come through. Also, community outreach is a big deal in your kitchen. We bake bread, we'll give it to our neighbors. And that's kind of a cool thing because we have the equipment to make homemade bread. And so that's a big deal to them. And so we take bread to them. And that's how we've gotten to reach out to them. He called us when our neighbor that we take bread to often called us and told us that his wife was dying. And so we touched base with them and kept in touch and still keep in touch to this day. That's huge with your neighbors. You need to know your neighbors. We take cookies, we make cookies at Christmas time and put them in tins, and we take them around to the merchants that we deal with all over town. And because we've been here for 29 years, oftentimes those merchants now are the children that came to camp. So we're working with the kiddos that came as campers, now own businesses in town that we deal with. And that's a big deal. It's that second generation thing. You need to stay when you see your second generation come through. So it's pretty, think about the kids that we've touched in this small little tourist town that we have here in McCall. I want to talk a little bit about how to organize. I would consider, I've never had any formal training. It was one of those things where it was part of the job when Douglas and I came on, because we took 4 people's jobs and one of them was the cook. And so I learned how to quantity cook. And there's a difference between quantity cooking and just cooking at home for your family. We all know that, I would hope. You know, people, oh, anybody can cook. No, but quantity cooking and to get the meal to come out all at the same time is a little bit trickier than it would be in a home environment, I think. So menu planning is a big deal. What I do in my summertime is I have a menu plan so that we know that this meal is Mexican, and then the cooks then negotiate what type of Mexican they're doing, because there's all different kinds that you can do. If they're doing burgers, sometimes we do hamburgers, sometimes we do chicken burgers, sometimes we, you know what I mean? So we change up the menu each week so your staff aren't bored, but that your cooks kind of know what's coming down the line. So you can look at a whole menu and it's organized out as to who's doing what for the week, and the cooks talk about it. And that's a huge deal. In the wintertime, I'm the one that cooks. So I hire cooks in the summertime. I used to do it as well as run camp, and that wasn't good for me or staff. So I hire cooks that take over for the 8 weeks that we run kids camps. But in the wintertime, it's me that does that. And so I have a menu. I keep track of what I cooked the year before so that it's not the same as this next coming year. And then I also keep track of special diets, because that's a big deal, or special diets is a huge deal now that was not a big deal when we first started into camping. And so that's another whole sideline. And most of the time, not always, but most of the time we're doing weekend groups during the wintertime because there's now 4 of us on staff. And so that helps us plan. And so I have it all listed out. And because I've done it a lot and there's not that many of us, I can cheat and not do a check sheet. But we have a meal list. So in the summertime, when we're working with our 16 and 17-year-olds that are in the kitchen, I have a meal list where you check off everything and you just map the whole thing out, to ketchup, to silverware, to napkins, to the bins that go for the silverware. It's all listed out. So all they have to do is go down the list and make check marks if they've done that part of the meal. And that's really important. I did not do PowerPoints, but I can certainly give you this information if you want to email me at darla@idahaven.org. And I can give you any of those kind of paper things that I work from. Obviously, we work from computers as well, but it's nice to have, we print out the paper where the kids, you know, check off what they're doing for that meal, and that's really helpful. A computer program, and there's all kinds of different ones out there. We use Cookin', but there's all kinds that you can use that will resize your recipes, and that's important. And my suggestion with that would be that you make sure that you list every single step out. Don't miss a step in that line items on the bottom, you know, where you list out your directions. You want to make sure that every single step is listed because it's a training facility. It's interesting. I tell my staff, the kids that come through, this is why you take math and chemistry, because that's what cooking is. That's why you go to school. That's why you do fractions. Let's work this out, you know, and just try and teach them that math really comes into play when you're just dealing with the things of life. That's really, really important. I also have whiteboard menus. So in the wintertime, when I'm cheating, I just write down what I'm doing. And in my mind, I know what's, you know, if you're going to put out a hot cereal, you put out the hot cereal toppings, and then you have the different kinds of milk. But again, in the summertime, you want to make sure that's all listed out for your kids. The info and ease of food ordering, you guys probably have worked with. It's really important that you work with your company that you're dealing with, or companies. Sometimes you can deal with more than one, depending on where you're located. So you really need to know your food service rep, who is going to buy for you and make sure that she gives you the best prices, she or he. That is really, really important. Our food service rep, Douglas, officiated at her wedding, and their kids now come to camp. So again, there's that tie into the community most of her life. I can't stress to you the importance of touching base with your community and make sure you're involved in the community part of it. That's a big deal. I also have an order guide that is a hard copy that I leave on a clipboard on my counter so that if they run out of something, the kids know where to go to mark it down so that you don't miss it on the order. And even though I go back through and double check things, it's just nice to be able to have that two-step system so that they feel involved in it as well. Again, your staff members that are coming in. Most of our staff members that come in, 16 and 17-year-olds, are in the kitchen. So a lot of the staff members that have moved up through and into the other parts of our programming for our camp have been in the kitchen, and that's really helpful. They're a little bit more respectful. They understand what our kitchen staff is dealing with in the summertime. That's a big deal, to have continuity and to make sure that people understand the different jobs. Another suggestion I would have would be to, when it opens up, go to food shows. They are now online, which there was some advantages to it, I suppose. But if you can get your staff to go to a food show, that broadens your just your view of what's out there. Some of the options. I feel like I've gone to enough food shows. If I can get one new idea, I think that's pretty cool. That's a big deal. And then I touch base with some of the products that I use or continue to use and see what's out there and what's changed and, you know, all that stuff. But it's inspiring. It's also inspiring for your cooks to go to different stores, there we are, like the Co-op or something like that, that would help them so that they get inspired to make changes. I think it's nice. I'm more of the organization part of the program, and it's nice to have people come in and have the dream of, oh, let's try this, you know, and that helps you to think outside the box. Because when you're doing weekend groups, you can do the same menu every weekend if you wanted to during that season, but that gets kind of boring. So it's nice to change it up a little bit. And people that have that skill set and have that desire, it's really helpful to have them on your team. That's a big deal, listening to them. And honestly, some of our young staff come in and go, why do you do it this way? And I'm like, oh yeah, why do you do that way? You know, I mean, it helps, fresh eyes help you to make some changes in your organization and how things flow in the kitchen. And that's a big deal, is the kitchen flow. You want to look at that, and people that come in with fresh eyes can help you with that. Like, how do you see this kitchen working? Another thing is you want to make sure that you have the items that you use the most often, the handiest. You know, you've got pots and pans that you use all the time. If you have them way down the bottom back shelf, who's going to crawl under there and try and get them? That's not as beneficial as if the pots and pans that you use all the time are easily accessed. That's really, really important. Okay. It's really important that what I did when I came in was I changed our summer staff schedule so that nobody is working more than one meal. So on my young staff, They work 4.5 hours a day. They either work breakfast, lunch, or supper. And so they come in, they prep the meal. They're there to back up. And by that, I mean, they're there, the other kitchen staff come in and serve it. And they're there to restock things if they run out, that kind of a thing. And then they're there to clean up. And then they're done. And then the next 2 meals are the ones that they serve. Then I have them work 2 hours out in an area that they're kind of interested in or that we need help in. Just be out and about with kids and other staff members and feel like they're out of the kitchen. I think it's helpful when they're not in there for the 3 meals. It's difficult for me to cook for 3 meals a day. And so I have cooks that cook for 2 meals a day. And then I have one that comes in the evening. Excuse me. I hope that makes sense, but I think so what I've hired is 9 staff members. Excuse me. 9 staff members in the summertime. Thank you. I do have some water, but now I suddenly have a tickle. Dennison, it's time for you to do your song and dance routine.
You know, I was just thinking it's a good thing you're going to get your COVID shot after this.
Yeah, for sure. Excuse me. Another thing that's important is shift changing. You want to map that out. Again, these kids aren't mind readers. Oftentimes they've come in and they have no kitchen experience. And they haven't even worked at home with their parents sometimes. So you're really teaching them from the ground up. And so you want to make sure that you list out what they're supposed to do when they start a shift, when they bring up the kitchen in the morning, and when they shut that kitchen down. Because if they don't shut off the equipment correctly, you can burn up your dishwasher. You can, all kinds of crazy things can happen. They don't shut the fridge or freezer door. All that stuff can be a real problem to you if you don't have a plan for them to shut it down. So it needs to be very specific for them. Even crazy things like shutting off the lights. It seems very easy to do that, but they don't always get it. So you really need to map that out. And so I have a checklist that's listed there for opening the kitchen in the morning. Talk to each other because they come in a half an hour before staff worship starts. So they need to get things ready to go. And then they have a little bit of a breather with staff worship for a little bit in the cafeteria there. And then they go right back into the work. So if they follow those guidelines and everything is up and going and ready to go. And so I map that out and make sure that I work through that with them. Another thing that we do is personality tests. And we do a really small one that's just kind of an easy, it's the animal one if you've ever heard of it. It's not intensive by any stretch of the means because sometimes these kids their personalities are changing. Who knows what, at 16, there's a big difference between a 16 and an 18-year-old. We all know that. So we just do a short little personality test and talk about how the personalities get along, how they work together, what we can do for that. And also I give that to our cooks so that I know, or so that they know what they're dealing with. If this person's a sanguine type personality, you got to make it a little bit more fun for them. If they're, more quiet, that's okay. They usually can work behind the scenes. You want to give them jobs that are a little bit easier behind the scenes, that kind of a thing. Again, it's not to pigeonhole them, but it is certainly, I am really sorry. It's certainly a benefit to those that don't understand the personalities, if that makes sense. Another question I have is, do you have someone that does special diets? Somebody has a passion for that. You need to have somebody on every shift that is focused on special diets. So you don't feed somebody something that they're allergic to, then you're going to have a lot of problems. I really do like to empower the kids to lead. I ask them questions. I encourage them. I expect them to step up to the plate. And because we're a little bit smaller staff, I deal with them more on an individual basis. So if somebody's having a struggle getting to work, we sit down and talk to them about that individually. I don't say, okay, everybody, you got to be here at this time because this child is not getting to bed on time, or you know what I mean? And I think it's really important that we empower our young people to step up to the plate, and they'll do it if you empower them for the majority of the time. You know, we hire 50 staff in the summertime all across the board. And we really try to stay focused on our younger ones to make sure that they're doing okay, and that they've, because sometimes this is the first time they've been away from home. Some of them have been to academy, but if they've never been away from home, it's a big deal to be at camp for 8 weeks. And especially last year, we were able to run because we were in the great state of Idaho. And so we were able to run. Mividen and us were the ones that ran in our union. And that it changed the face of things with COVID, of course. And we had no visitors that came on. A lot of times the parents will come and visit. We didn't allow that. So these kiddos stayed on campus for the 8 weeks once we quarantined and started. And that was a big deal to them. And, you know, you need to be there, meet their needs, help them organize their life, help them with their laundry, all that kind of stuff comes into play when they live at camp. So I think it's important that you guys always remember that you're a training facility. That is a huge deal if you can remember that. And I tell that to my staff, thank you. I tell that to my cooks because sometimes they get frustrated. You know how that is when you're tired and you're stressed and they're not stressed and you're trying to hit the meal and they're goofing off or something. You're a training facility. You need to teach them, you know, how to move forward, how to be helpful, that kind of a thing. But if you can give them as much information in your organization, they will feel more comfortable and more empowered. So I also have a checklist that I've made over the years where they do daily cleaning, which is outside of the normal cleaning up from a meal, where they wash the windows that people put their hands on and the doors, you know, that kind of a thing. And they, we make sure we disinfect now more than ever, but disinfect the drinking fountain, and you know, clean the juice machine nozzles. All those are on a list, and they initial that list, and we make sure that that's done daily. And then there's also a weekly cleaning. Again, it's just mapped out so that they can follow, and there's really no excuses for them, in my opinion, for them to just not know what they're doing. And as you know, there's always dishes that you can do. Easy. Always dishes, isn't there? So that's kind of the main gist of what I had. I just would encourage you to help your cooks think about the ministry of the kitchen, you know, and look at it that way. I've gone to camps where they put the food out and then they shut the doors and there's no interaction between the cook and you. And that's fascinating to me, because if your cooks don't interact, they're missing that part of the ministry, and they just get tired and irritated at the people that can be irritating. And so you want them to be out there. You want people to see it. Our kitchen, fortunately or unfortunately, one way or the other, once you open the doors and they come through the serving line, so we have 2 serving lines. I mean, we have the main deck, and they come through the lines and they go through the serving line and then they come out the doors. We used to have the salad bar right there, but now we serve the salad at this point. We'll see what happens this summer. And so once you open the doors, the kitchen's open. And that's, I think, you know, they'll come back and they'll chat on this side of the line, you know, they'll talk to you and find out what's going on. And I actually add in some time when I think how much the time for the meal prep is going to take. I add in some time so that I can visit with people along the way. And that, for my personality, that pushes me, because I'm organized in my word. I've got to get this done and this done and this done, and you want to sit and talk. So, but I think I always try and keep in mind that it is the ministry of camp and what we're doing. Plus, because Douglas and I are the only 2 there, or used to be, you know, there's all kinds of things that come at you, like they want you to fix this, or they want to talk about getting their kids into camp, or they want to talk about bringing in another group, or they want to, you know, so you're working as well as trying to book other groups and be involved in what's going on. So even, I'm going to go back to this, even though your facility might be older and or a little bit run down, or it should always be clean. There's no excuse for it not to be clean, but it can look different in different ways. You know what I mean? And because I've gone to Adventist camps across the United States, it's been great to be able to see the different facilities that are out there. And there's some great facilities out there. And there's some facilities that aren't that great, but the food is great. And that's okay. You know what I mean? That's what we have to offer. And for some people, that is that homey experience that really meets people's needs. And so it's okay if your facility isn't all up to snuff and, you know, you don't have tablecloths or cloth tablecloths on or whatever. It's important that that food and your hospitality is the best thing. I remember we went to one camp and they were just so thrilled. They just took paper plates, or they took their plates away. They only used paper plates because then people would eat less. And then it was so much easier to clean up. So your point then is not the service part of it, but it's just making sure that you can get a better deal on the food and make sure you get people through. So again, I'm uncomfortable when that is the focus. I know that, and sometimes we do paper plates here, but not always. We have plates that we use the majority of the time. And I just think it's uncomfortable when we focus on that aspect of it. We need to focus on the ministry of what we're doing at camp. But again, with ministry can come organization. And I'm all for that. My big saying, and one of my staff members made a sign for me that I have hanging up here: everything has a home. And if it doesn't have a home, then you're just going to move it from pillar to post. You're going to move it around. I was working with one of my male staff members that was going off getting his PhD. I said, so do you think that you're a good housekeeper, or how, you know, I was just chatting with him. He said, well, I kind of am. And I said, well, you know, there's only one thing to housekeeping that you need to remember. And you could see his eyes go, oh my goodness, she's going to give me a lecture on this whole thing. And I said, everything has a home. Because if it doesn't have a home, then you don't know where to put it. And so then you put it over here, and then pretty soon it needs to be over here. And then you pile this pile over here because I don't know what I'm doing with it. And then, oh my word. Sorry. In the office, it's just busy. Anyway, so I just encourage staff that we make sure, sorry about that, guys. Hang on just a second. Sorry about that. The answer machine is in the office. But anyway, I encourage staff to make sure that everything has a home. And in the kitchen, everything has a home. Oh my word, stop.
You know, that it may sound like just a recording, but I think it sounds like cash.
Does it?
It sounds like cash rolling in.
Oh, and in the kitchen, you want to make sure your staff know where things are. We actually created a little scavenger hunt kind of thing. So I would say, okay, where are the spatulas? And whoever got there first, you know, just make a fun game out of it. I encourage them to walk through the kitchen and figure out where everything is. And even though, and I said, even though if you ask me again, I'm okay with it, because, but at least try to find something and put it back where it goes, because otherwise especially at the end of summer, I go, okay, now where would somebody put the cheese grater? Where would they think that through? You know what I mean? So you have to really think it through if they haven't put it back in the correct place. It just makes for disorganization in your kitchen if you don't have a spot for everything that you have. So that's a big deal for me. I don't know if that helps or gives you some ideas, or you get a little pointer on that, but I strive to continue to organize as much as I can. I have recipe books that are very organized, and I have plastic covers for each of my recipes, and I make sure that they get put back where they go. Again, that's another thing. If you're trying to search for a recipe, you know, and you can't find it, the soup, and it's in the breakfast, you know, I mean, that's a struggle. And so I want to make sure that everybody knows that those kind of things get out of place, but you've got to, as much as you can, organize so that it makes it just easier for staff to come in and work through that. especially when my cooks change. So I have a full-time cook in the summertime, and then I have 3 part-time cooks that come and relieve some of them along the way, that kind of a thing. And it's just mapped out so that they know their schedule, and they've been for years, which I feel very grateful for, that having cooks coming back and they get to know each other and how they work together is a phenomenal thing. And I play to their skill sets. We have one of our cooks loves to organize, and so he does all the computer work for the other ones and gets it mapped out for them for the week, which is a wonderful thing because he's here for about 3 or 4 days. And that's really, really helpful. Again, if you can play to the strengths of what you have there and what people enjoy doing and what they're comfortable doing, that's half your battle. If somebody's trying to do the organizing and they hate it, it's just going to be ugly. And so you want to make sure that you have, you play to their skill sets. And that's the main, I feel like the main part of my job is when I look at the 50 staff, have I placed them in an area where they have a passion for their ministry? Sometimes you can't, and sometimes they know they're waiting to move into another area, or sometimes they thought they wanted to be a counselor and they were actually better at challenge course. You know, that kind of a thing comes into play. But that's a thing that we assess when we are done with the season. So we sit down with each of our staff members and do an exit review. Okay, what did you enjoy? Where you think you want to move to? You want your returning staff to come back. You want them to come back. And so most of the time, let's be honest, most of the time you want them to come back, and other times you don't. And so the ones that you want to come back, you want to make sure that you communicated with them that you want them to come back. What is it if they want to do? How can we help you organize that better? All those things are a huge thing. You do an organization for the whole thing as well as for kitchen. But kitchen is your whole, I mean, it pivots around the kitchen. If the kitchen is late, if the meal is late, your whole program then becomes late, or it just pushes everybody all the way down the line. So organization is your key, and it just is a continuing thing. And I haven't looked over here for,
Were you looking for questions?
yeah, I'm looking for questions.
Oh, I can help you out with that.
Okay, thank you.
I think just listening to you talk, to me, it sounds like if somebody was listening today and heard nothing else besides you need to have the kitchen organized.
Besides my coffee.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Besides the phone ringing. If you hear nothing else, it's your position in the cafeteria may be about cooking food, but it's also about a bigger ministry and impacting those around you and inspiring them to find their passion in life and help them to grow as a person. Okay, well, we have had several questions, and one of them is the practical one. You said you had a staff of 9 that works there in the cafeteria in the food service department. About how many people do you feed with that food service crew of 9?
We have about 150 to 175 a week. And 9 means that I have 3 breakfast kids, 3 lunch, 3 dinner, and then I have a cook that manages that. So there's really 4 that function in the kitchen at any given time.
Cool.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think that was kind of what they were looking for with that question. Now you also talked about they come in, they work 1 meal, and then they get to go off and experience the rest of the camp. Do you have any plans to change that with the environment we're in with COVID and trying to minimize germ distribution, or will that still be your plan for this summer?
It's a plan we did last summer, and it'll still be the plan. Because a lot of our activities are outside, so it's easy to minimize the COVID issue. We are dropping down to a lower risk here in Idaho because it came through. We'll see if it peaks again, but and then there's a lot of vaccines going on, so people are a little less fearful. We opened up our registration last week and are jammed. We have 150 kids on our waiting lists, which will not be able to get in, which is a sad good thing. And so people are wanting something for their children. We did do way more cleaning than we normally do. I think the one thing that I'll continue to do even after COVID is over will be to have some sort of masking issue when they serve food, because it's always bothered me, because when you talk, you You spit some. I hate to say it that way, but you do. And when they talk over food, that is bothersome to me. So I have clear masks that I got online, which basically stops that. It doesn't stop COVID. It doesn't stop, but it will stop that part of it. And I will continue to do that because you can disinfect those and reuse them quite a bit. And they're very reasonably priced. I know a lot of issues we're dealing with is gloves, trying to get gloves that will work, especially if they're latex free, if somebody's allergic to latex, that kind of a thing. And they're way high priced. But I think gloves are a huge issue and need to continue to be an issue in the kitchen. That's a big deal to me. And so like I say, most of our activities are outside. And so I want our kids to be exposed to that. I think last year, our office staff, our administrative staff felt the weight of COVID on us because any given moment we could be shut down. You know what I mean? Something could happen and there was a few scares, that kind of a thing. And we continued to run, but we wanted our staff to not feel that and to feel some sort of peace about the environment that they were in, especially our campers. We never talked about COVID. We just left that subject alone. I didn't want my pastors to deal with COVID. I wanted it to be an environment where they could be free of that for at least a week. And we managed to make it through and did well. But we only ran about 80% capacity because we had about 250 people that dropped because of scares of COVID and that sort of thing. And we had about 100 to 150 new people that were searching for something for their children. And so the problem with that is now this year, everybody's bottlenecking in because everybody wants to come back now. And so now we're even more pressed for room and availability. And we can't overbook. We used to cheat and overbook a little bit and put a cot in. We can't do that this year.
Right.
So we're just going to hold that line.
There's a question that's been on here. It came up almost instantly once you started, and then you kind of touched on it a little bit, but not in depth. And so I think maybe if you could give this a little bit more fleshing out, that would be good. Someone had a question. We have had good cooks, but they're saying it's more and more difficult to cook as there are so many different dietary needs.
Yes.
Like something that's nut-free, something that's gluten-free, something that's, somebody's got a soy allergy, different, we had somebody allergic to citrus at our camp. And then you've got vegan and all of those things. And our cook one summer prepared 7 different meals per meal time, which really takes a lot of extra time. What suggestions do you have to cut down the time for the cook or to deal with that situation?
Yeah, that is a rough one. And we've struggled with that as well. It almost takes one other cook. So I have backup people that have been in the kitchen. The gal that does our cleaning in the wintertime and is here all the time comes in and does some of our special diets. And we have some of our other staff members that come in and do special diets. And then we have it mapped out as to what you're doing for that week. And because it changes every week. I mean, you have your staff that and even they will have some special diets. And then you have the rest of them that you're dealing with and making sure you don't have allergies with that. And so sometimes I'll come in and do some prep in the morning for them. And we have it mapped out because especially for breakfast, it never changes. The other meals will change. So you're going to do pancakes. So one of us will come in and do the special diet pancakes that could be vegan and gluten-free. So you have to have recipes that kind of hopefully meet the needs and not spread out to 7. That is rough. Yes. And we've done that. And then the next meal you have, the next thing that you're doing, then you have to figure out what it is for that. And so one of our cooks will do that for the other cook. So the one cook that's on cooks the main meal and the other cook comes in and does the other part.
And maybe it's a little bit lighter load.
Yeah, a little lighter. And they can stay focused on that because it's hard to remember, okay, this one can't do soy, this one can't do nuts, this one can't do, you know what I mean? And so you have to figure that all out and you need to stay focused on that.
Sure. Oh, hey, there's Douglas.
There he is.
The way I'm moving to Missouri. He asked me to move to Missouri.
Oh, did he?
He's been texting, actually.
Hey, Douglas.
Let's stay focused. So Kay, I don't know if that gives you some good ideas. Maybe let me know there in the chat. And
Email me
if
afterwards.
that kind of answers your,
Yeah,
yeah, I threw your email in the
Thank you.
chat. People were wondering if it would be possible to get a link or a copy of the personality test that you give to your staff.
sure.
And I put in temperamentquiz.com. I think that one
Mhm.
deals with like the sanguine, choleric, melancholy, and
Yes.
it. I don't know if
I
that's
tried to, for that, I tried to make it, again, back to that, I tried to make it really easy. So it's really a one sheet thing, and they circle the words that they feel pertains to them. And then they count them up, and that's there. And it's an animal thing. So again, it's really pared down, you guys. It's like the lion, the otter, the beaver, the golden retriever. So they match up with the sanguine and the choleric and the melancholy, that one. Again, I just want to encourage them to think about it. Take tests periodically. See how they fit in. Think about it.
Sure. Do you have a link to the
Self a
one you
little bit.
use, or
Say it again?
where they could find it? What's that?
I would have to email it to them because I think we got it somewhere. I don't even know where we got it, but I'll email a copy easily.
Probably if we just did a Google search, maybe we could find
Maybe.
that.
Mhm.
Temperament. Would that be like a temperament quiz or like a personality?
Probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you've got a collection of like example schedules and policies and
Oh yeah.
the system you have set up for people to do. Would you mind sending that
Mm-hmm.
to me along with some cookies, and we can put them on the AACP site?
I know how you like cookies. Yes.
Yeah. I looked for there's like a share screen. I didn't see a share oven. I couldn't find that on here. Yeah, if you want to send that in to us, we could post that in the AACP section. That would be super. There's been
That'd be
people
great.
asking for that.
Good.
Someone else want to know, do you have a contact, like a where you would go to get those masks that have the clear panel that you can see that you mentioned? Would that be
I got it
something-
off of Amazon.
Yeah, what would you put in for a search on Amazon to find those? Do you remember what you did?
No, but I can tell you, I think, if I can look it up.
Okay.
So do you have another? I'll look it up and see.
Okay. We're running through questions pretty quickly here. Somebody was talking about maybe getting together and getting a link where we can share different dietary restriction meal plans.
Mhm.
Do you know of a site that we could go to that would have some of those? Is there one that you like in particular, or we may just have to organize ourselves somehow?
I think we need to organize it ourselves.
Okay.
Because we're uniquely vegetarian-ish. I mean, there's a lot of vegetarian cookbooks out there. I shop all the time and look through things to inspire me to make changes as far as what we can do. Again, one thing I hate to be rude, but there's, you either have it or you don't. You know what I mean? As far as the whole kitchen and being able to manage it and function. But I can certainly teach to that if you are insecure about it and you feel uncomfortable about it. So I teach my cooks the overall picture of that. But in doing that, I teach them how to do 1 to 2 to 3 good meals. And if they can get that under their belts, then they can get moving forward. Some people just naturally, do you understand what I'm saying? Naturally do it. And they can come in and, they can figure out the size that they need. And others, you really have to walk them through it. And that's okay. You can teach to that if you know that that's their personality, but you have to realize that they probably will never move past that if without some help. And that's okay. If that's the cook you have, or that's the cook you are, that's really okay. You want to learn 1 to 2 to 3 meals that you can feel good about and you do very, very well. And then move to another meal and then move to another meal. So again, that organization will help you feel successful and to move forward in your cooking experience, in your cooking ministry, really, because it's all in the timing of getting a large meal for 100 to 150 people out on time. It's all in the timing, because you don't want your broccoli mush and your lasagna underdone. You know what I mean? And so it's really a timing thing.
Sure. I was just agreeing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it looks like we've run through the questions that people had posted up to this point, and I don't know,
Wonderful.
maybe another one come in or two here. We'll see. But I think we're nearing the end of our time here for this session. I just want to say thank you again for being here. We'll see if another question comes through the chat. But in the meantime, thank you for being here on our AACP Connect event. And seems like maybe your husband's taking good care of you there and gotten you something with honey in it to chug so you can get rid of the cough.
No, I'm really sorry about that. Wow, that just went belly up on me. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. But again, just thank you for being here. And again, we'll watch
You're
for
welcome.
those sample things, schedules or
Okay.
plan, or the things that you have set out that kids can look at and just go, oh yeah, I need to do that. Because
Great. I'll give you examples.
Yeah, I've discovered it's true with my 9-year-old boy or 16-year-old boys. They just need reminded that they need to do something. And seeing that could be a big help. And maybe other people could not necessarily just copy what you do, because you have to make it personal for your situation, but it could give them a good idea of a direction to go. That'd be super helpful. And we'll just post that up there on the AACP Connect site also. And there's people writing through saying, thank you so much. Good information.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Yeah. And with that, I think we'll let you off the hook.
Okay. We've got to run.
Yeah, I know you got somewhere to go, so we don't want to hold you up. But again, just thank you for being here and being part of AACP Connect this year.